All right, there we go. Gates are open. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Sorry for the delay. Had a whole mess of technical issues on our end, but you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna blame Zoom for that one. It was definitely their responsibility to make sure that that worked out, and they dropped the ball. So Zoom, this one's on you. But we're just going to be waiting a handful more minutes here just so people can actually connect in. While we're waiting, just for everyone who is here, we have James as well as Ray, who are going to be taking a little bit of a discussion and chat as far as a look into kind of how hospitality and travel are doing, which is I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to be the most optimistic thing in the world. But I don't know. I honestly don't know, but we'll see. Again, if anyone has any questions, there is a Q&A feature on the bottom of your screen. Should be bottom by default, might be up on top if you did something to your Zoom. But feel free to submit any questions through the Q&A, and kind of at the more tail end of the discussion here, we will get to answering any questions that you guys may have. This is all going to be recorded, and we can send that link out once it's in a format that's more easily digestible and online, so you guys can see it. No need to take notes or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, figured we started a couple minutes late, so let's just probably best if we just get the show on the road. So I'm going to hand it over to Ray and James here.
All right, thanks, Michael, and thanks for a little intro. I know that's one of people's favorite part of the webinar so far. And everyone who joined, thank you so much for joining today's webinar, Turbulence in the Travel Sector. Very nicely worded, having James here with us today. Certainly the past 6 months, the travel and hospitality industry has suffered, a massive shakeup, due to the health pandemic or the health concerns and safety that, that we've all, we're all very well aware. In today's webinar, we have the opportunity to have with us James Chitty, the CEO of Telon Air and a partner at Apollo Jets, who has experienced firsthand not only the tremendous impact that COVID-19 has had in the travel industry, but also has been able to successfully adjust and adapt to the current needs of the market, the current needs of the industry. James, thank you so much for joining. And before
thank you for having me.
I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to the audience, a little bit of who you are and what your business does.
Sure. So I'm a partner and the CEO of a company called Telon Air. We are one of the largest Part 135 operators based in the Northeast. I'm also a partner in a company called Apollo Jets, which is a large jet charter brokerage, primarily based here in New York. We have offices all over the location. On the Telon Air side, which is really kind of my baby, and that's where I run the day-to-day business, we currently manage 43 aircraft in our fleet. We have a full 145 repair station. So between both Apollo and Telon, we can kind of take the client from A to Z, from just simply chartering a plane on a one-off scenario all the way through aircraft acquisition, ownership, management services, large maintenance inspections, things of that sort. So kind of a one-stop shop for all things private aviation, whether it's charter or ownership.
That's great. Thanks so much. And let's just start from the beginning, trust, must be one of the key areas, for people to want to use your service, especially, during the pandemic and post-pandemic, between now and probably the vaccine. And, trust is critical, with trust, communication is critical for you to be able to build trustworthy relationship with your stakeholders. How do you go about communicating with your audience? What has been the best tools, and what is the message that you've been using in order to build this type of relationships?
Sure. I mean, transparency is something we believe in as a whole. It's kind of one of the words you'll hear the most out of us when it comes to any kind of presentation purposes. So we are totally transparent in what we know, and in this case, what we don't know. And unfortunately, with COVID specifically, there are a lot of things that we don't know, and what we know today is different than what we thought we knew a few weeks ago and a few weeks before that. So it's kind of a evolving process for us. But like you said, trust is everything, right? So because we have the fleet of aircraft and kind of internally, we're sort of one of the premium providers in the space. We have the ability, especially when someone's flying on one of our own aircraft, to kind of control the situation, control the flow. So control who the people are meeting and greeting at the airport, the exposure to the pilots or any of the other people at the airport. Then also, kind of what happened to both the plane and the crew personnel before and after. So people are paying, they pay up for that peace of mind, and they look to companies like ourselves to provide, that extra layer of kind of security in this scenario. Sorry, my phone's ringing here. To pay for that extra level of transparency and safety, not only when it comes to safety in the sky, but safety on the ground, specifically with the COVID measures.
That's great. And looking at the different channels from a communication perspective, building trust, is it mainly, would you say, is like your current like client base that you've kind of like built and curated over the years, and you just have a personal relationship with them? Are you using any other communication channels in order to be able to expand and reach new audiences with that
Sure.
sort of message?
So yeah, all of the above, right? So most of our clients, it's obviously a very, very niche clientele, and most of our clients are referrals from other clients. So word of mouth is by far the kind of the quickest, easiest way to get messages out there. But we've looked for alternate kind of opportunities specifically in this market. Things like social media. We've done much more video the past few months and video presentations than we have, participated in events like this, and we've kind of distributed that amongst our client base and prospective clients, numerous times over the past, few months since COVID has started. There's so many new people coming into the space, people that have the means, but for whatever reason haven't chose to travel privately in the past. So the education with those new customers is really what kind of sets us apart, I think, right? We want to teach them not only, the right way to fly, but the reason why we might choose one airplane over another or one location over another. But at the same time, we want to provide, great value and say, hey, you are paying a premium compared to maybe commercial services, but this is why. And just having kind of more control over the whole experience is what people ultimately pay for.
Absolutely. And, you just use the word kind of like paying for the experience, and you've been in the space long enough. Have you identified any shift on kind of like consumer behavior expectations before pandemic, after the pandemic? Any new trends coming up in the kind of like in the travel space, focused on the kind of like in the airline or like on the private jet as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously in our world, right, it's people pay really for time, right? That's the biggest thing you save by flying private is your utilization of time. You can be much more efficient from a time perspective than going through some of the bigger commercial airports and dealing with kind of the commercial traffic. But the experience both on board, pre and post flying is really a big piece of it as well. So in the past, where people were maybe looking for some more bells and whistles and a little bit more high contact and a little bit of a different service, specifically in the cabin or maybe before and after the flight. Since COVID, obviously, there's been a huge trend to less is more, and less is more kind of across the board, right? Not just with personnel, but interaction with that personnel, the amenities on board, blankets, pillows, what's the cleaning process? I mean, all of those types of questions are questions that truly we didn't really experience pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So I expect, that to continue to be kind of a changing process, right? Every day I get a question from a customer that honestly I don't know the answer to yet, right? We're still working through some of these things, but we're being as proactive as possible with different protocols and putting different measures in place to protect, again, not only the passengers, but ultimately our employees and the crew members as well. Because it's a big part of, what makes us great is the people and how they handle these scenarios. And I'm super proud of our staff and the kind of quick reactions that the crews have had to accommodate people, right, and with maybe limited interaction, but also go above and beyond to make sure that although maybe there's less human interaction at this point, to still have kind of a great experience on the customer service side. So we're proud of our staff here at Talon for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about how kind of like safety and and comfort is kind of like becoming not only like the time saving that you mentioned, but also how safety now is becoming also like a priority, if more of
Sure.
a top of mind. Do you think that, from a travel and hospitality perspective, you can actually be able to build kind of like to bring both things, kind of like the best of both worlds, bringing kind of like that level of safety, of security, comfort with entertainment, especially individuals being like at home, having been at home quarantined for such a long time, they're looking for not only get out, but have fun. Do you think that that's something that, two questions here is this something that you feel it's possible? And also not, applying to your business, but also looking at more like commercial airlines, looking at the hotel industry, is it actually possible to do it at scale?
I don't know. It's a very challenging question. I mean, I think on our level, it's much more possible because again, you can kind of control the whole experience.
Yeah.
But the reality is you need places to go, and with different cities and states kind of shut down or different quarantining processes between state to state or country to country at that point, it presents some challenges for sure. I mean, obviously on the bigger hospitality side, commercial air travel, hotels, things of that nature, people want to travel, right? Everybody I speak to says, I can't wait till this is over. I can't wait to go here. I can't wait to do this. That golf trip, that leisure trip, that business meeting. Yeah. I mean, everybody is chomping at the bit to get somewhere.
Yeah.
So I think with the vaccine specifically, or with some kind of clarity on exactly basically the repercussions if you did contract COVID, what's the long-term picture looks like. Once that gets clearer, I would expect not only return back to kind of where we were from a normalcy standpoint, but out of the gate, I expect a pretty big boom, just because I'm sure everybody on this webinar here is looking to get somewhere as soon as they can, and kind of tired of being tied up with the kids maybe, or the family at home, and they want to get out and move around a bit.
And any case studies, any company that any company in the travel and hospitality space that you've been following, tracking, and you say, oh man, like these guys are doing a really good job, not only at communicating, but actually at implementing like some sort of like out of the box policies that really makes you feel that you're getting this kind of like best of both worlds experience of like safety, comfort, but at the same time entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're still a big, although I'm in the private aviation space, we're a big buyer of general aviation services, right? We're moving crew members and employees and different people kind of across the country routinely. So although myself, I haven't really traveled out of by air, not commercially since COVID has happened, I know the feedback that I get from many of our employees and the pilots is, kind of the best in class. Big brands like the Deltas of the world have done a really great job about the mask wearing and the separation and the boarding process, and not selling the middle seats and things of that nature, where people are definitely looking to capital. People are looking to those bigger brands, right? They're willing to pay a little bit of a premium in this market to know that they're getting that extra layer of service and or safety from these different protocols that are in place. I mean, the communication that we've gotten from all of them has been really great, right? The hotel services, we're obviously big procurers of rooms across the country based on travel patterns. Yeah. And a lot of the hotels have reached out to us, and it was a big concern because you ask your employees to come to work and you want to provide some sense of safety for them as well, right? It's not just the passengers. Crew members take a plane from Los Angeles to Chicago. When they get off the plane in Chicago, they have to go somewhere. They have to eat. They have to have the proper kind of opportunities. So we always look for things like full service hotels. We're double checking with the hotels themselves of what's open, what's available, how can the crews get around, and the big brands, the Hiltons and the Marriotts, have done a pretty good job of providing good safe services, but also communicating with us and saying, there's 4 restaurants in this facility. 1 is closed, 1's open from this time, and here's kind of how people are managing this situation. So this way, when the employees get to that location, they have at least some sense of what's going on and what the world's going to look like while they're there.
Okay. And just try to walk me through, when the pandemic first hit, as a CEO and as a partner and ultimately as the leader of your company, that following day, if there was, after, kind of like, I would say, I still remember like that day where like Trump addressed the nation and the NBA shut down, and of the Tom Hanks, got
Yep.
positive, like the war was ending,
Yep.
How do you go, or like, what do you say to your employees? How do you address your team, just to give them both safety, say, hey, like, we're going to be all right, and also to tell them what's going to be the path forward? What is that message to your internal team?
Again, I think I go back to transparency and I say, hey, this is obviously a developing, situation that we're all kind of learning about, and it's changing for us all, right? We're all kind of in the same spot here. We never ask crew members, regardless of COVID, or employees, to do something that we're not comfortable with, or that we wouldn't do on a personal level.
Yeah.
So to be clear, people that were high risk and had some immunity issues and challenges and things of that nature, we immediately let them kind of sit on the sidelines for a little while until we figure things out. But we were having, I want to say, calls or webinars or meetings, things of that nature, basically every other day at the height of the pandemic. And, things were quickly developing, right? So just being transparent about what we know and what we don't know, and just keeping lines of communication open of, hey, this is how we're going to try to weather this storm, and this is where we are today. Not just maybe we didn't talk specifically about one aircraft or one employee or one situation. We talked about the company as a whole. How's the health of the business? What's it going to look like? What's our long-term strategy?
Yeah.
So we were very open and transparent with everybody, as we always are. But the high level of communication and kind of reaching out to people and putting your messages out there was super, super important. Still super important, but it was even more important, obviously, at the height of the pandemic back in March and April and May.
Got it. Absolutely. And, just from a business perspective, any chance that you feel that we can get to full profitability without a vaccine, or we are kind of like hostage in a way to kind of like to a vaccine coming in to be able to like go back to a certain level of normalcy?
I mean, for us, again, maybe not a vaccine, but some sense of, hey, I can get this and weather the storm, and it's not, I'm not going to die, and I'm not going to be in a very challenging situation. I think we need some level of that to get back to kind of where we were. The world's changing, right? If this was 6 months ago, we would have done this on a stage in an auditorium in front of a lot of people. Instead, now we're doing it, I'm doing it from my cell phone in my office by myself. It's the world's changing. So it's hard to say. I do believe that hospitality, aviation, and private aviation in particular will be strong going forward. I think this will push a lot of the, people that have the means kind of over the line to jump into kind of our space here, and we'll create some different opportunities. But the truth is, leisure is one part, is, I don't want to say a small part of our business, but business travel is what really moves the needle for us. And we really need the states to open, and the different, events, right? Just think about all the events that were canceled: the Super Bowl, the Grammys, the Oscars, all these things, all the trade shows and road shows and IPOs and conventions. That's where people go, and those aren't happening today. So I think once that opens up, whatever it's going to take for those kind of events to come back into place, concerts and touring and all those types of things, that's when we'll truly see our business kind of come back to normal, and hospitality in general start getting back to where it was.
Yeah, it's interesting because earlier you said how you've seen a new influx of new clients, kind of like not that type of kind of like high-end individuals that you are just describing in terms of like those that will go to a Grammys or to big trade shows,
Sure.
or etc., but just more like normal, high net worth individuals just looking for, willing to pay that premium for that access to flying, to traveling, in a much more safe environment. Are you seeing this too? Are you seeing this potentially be a norm? Do you feel that
Well, what I saw, right, specifically in the beginning too, right, in March and April, a lot of people went to their second homes. So, our core clients, right? Our core clients fly often and we're in regular communication with them. But what we saw for the shift was kind of, hey, this family, flies private, right? Husband, wife, maybe a couple kids, grandkids, whatever it is. Now kind of the ancillary family, the mother-in-law, the in-laws, the nephews, the uncles, now that person came into the space where maybe before they couldn't justify it, but because people wanted that extra layer of security. I mean, I flew so many parents home from South Florida up to the Northeast, and in March and April, that it was, I mean, that's always a huge routing. It's one of the biggest routings for us in general, but March and April was like everybody was a parent coming back from South Florida or going to South Florida to hide out for a while. That was a huge influx. So I believe these new people will stay in the space, or at least use private aviation maybe more than they have in the past. Again, if a vaccine comes out and this is kind of behind us in a couple months, which I hope that it is, will they stay? I don't know. Time will tell here. But look, everybody wants, regardless whether you're flying private or if you're on a city bus, you want cleanliness. You want to know that there's a procedure in place, a protocol in place to keep you safe, right? I live in New York, so mass transit's very prominent for me. You get on a subway, you want to feel safe and clean, and you want to know that you can move around without risk of hurting yourself. So I think the companies and the organizations that go out of their way to make that experience happen for their their clients will be the ones that really shine coming out of this.
And do you just on the business side for the private kind of like private jet industry, or more like a selective or space, do you feel that COVID has generated an awareness probably to a brand new sector of, market sector that potentially is opening up a new venue of clients? Do you think that could potentially push some prices down in order to be able to, get an increase in volume of more individuals? Or you think that's
I think it's still a supply and demand scenario, right? So yes, new people have definitely come into the space, but with a new customer, supply will go, with demand, growing, supply will go down. So I don't know if it's going to necessarily push pricing down. Honestly, a lot of the protocols that we've taken, through COVID is increased cost, right? The extra cleaning processes, the extra time. I mean, there's been a pretty big added expense to our normal operation. So I don't know if pricing will necessarily come down. I mean, I think ultimately fuel prices and things of that nature is what really moves the needle on that side. But new people are definitely coming into the space, and they're definitely interested in what we have to offer. Again, I think that you'll see more, maybe C-level executives that flew private part of the time will probably make a shift to going, private more of the time. At the same time, I think Zoom calls and webinars and things like that will, maybe instead of doing a dozen meetings a year, and maybe now that number goes to 8 or 6 or 4 or something like that, just to kind of continue to further reduce the risk. So we're kind of in a wait and see mode, right? We're trying to grab some market share while we can and continue to grow. Absolutely. But every day it changes.
Yes, I think that's been the norm this year, I feel.
Sure.
Every day is something new. You were just talking just now about like some of the changes on a day-to-day operations, that is increasing the cost of operating the planes and offering your service. Like what have been the biggest ones? Could you walk us through how you've been able to adapt, to...
I mean, obviously PPE, right out of the gate, just getting it was a huge challenge, right? So the added kind of the expense of buying it, but really the expense of paying the premium just to get the supplies was, there was a real cost factor to that up front. But really labor, right? So we have, we have cameras in our office when you walk in that scan your temperature and do the body scan and all that type of stuff. And we're still working on a skeleton staff, but getting all the employees set up to work remotely and from home, and the additional cost there with the different, kind of online subscriptions that we've used to streamline the process and still have the right communications. I mean, these are all just expenses that I didn't have, a couple months ago. We still have, lease and rent, and we still have expenses on that side. That unfortunately, it doesn't go away. with maybe less people coming into play. So there's a huge kind of additional labor costs that's been out there. And then again, the supplies, the cleaning process, in the airline business, and this is more so on the general aviation, on the commercial aviation side than on the private side, but turning an airplane and being able to get to the next city quickly is where you really have the opportunity to kind of increase margin. And obviously now with the different disinfection processes that were taking place kind of in between trips,
Yeah.
you have to spend more time on the ground, where I used to maybe be able to do 2 or 3 trips in a day. Now that's 1 or 2 trips in a day, depending on, access to the proper cleaning protocols and staffing levels of where you are. So volume in general is down, clearly because of what's going on, but also because of the procedures that we have to do in between flights to keep everyone safe and healthy.
Yeah, that absolutely. And just last questions, and I'm gonna let the audience. I feel there are a few questions already. From all you've had your business to to shift and to adjust for these times, how many of these changes, what changes do you feel are temporary, are going to be over as soon as we go back to certain level of normalcy? What are the things in your business that you feel like are actually going to continue to be a part of like that DNA of your organization for the long term?
Yeah, I mean, I think the disinfection process that we've kind of adapted and what that looks like, I think that'll be here forever, right? Everybody wants to be in a cleaner space. We just didn't think about it maybe the way that we think about it today with the different air filters and UV lights and all the different kind of opportunities that are out there. That technology obviously existed, which is why it was quickly available. But people didn't buy in for whatever reason. Maybe they didn't think it was relevant. Now it's much more of a front of mind. Hey, let's keep that going. So I think all of those types of procedures will stay forever. The rest is, hey, how much human interaction do you want? Do you want to shake hands? Do you want to greet? Do you want a cabin attendant when maybe you don't need one? These are things that are just literally changing flight to flight. It feels like, if not day to day, for sure.
Absolutely, and thank James. I'm going to pass it on to Michael to see whether there are any questions from the audience.
Yeah.
Sure.
So the good news is there were a lot of questions, but James, as you kind of just were going through everything, you ended up answering a lot of them. So that's kind of nice. There's are still some that are kind of outstanding. I think one that you kind of touched on, someone might want a little more clarification, is what kind of tech have you seen from airlines / general travel companies? What kind of tech have you seen airlines / travel companies implement to avoid the human heavy interaction?
Well, so again, the whole kind of boarding process, right? Even in general aviation, you still need to present an ID, and how that has happened. So getting as much of the information up front, including some screening procedures as far as temperatures checks and things of that nature. There's different apps and different technology that us and a lot of our competitors are using to track that. We've also been tracking that specifically with our employees, right? That we have kind of a daily login and status sheet of reporting of symptoms and things of that nature that we've been using a lot. And then, to go a step further, things like UV lights being installed in aircraft to sanitize planes, something, I never even considered, pre-COVID, that's becoming very, very relevant. All the different hand sanitizers and the hand misters and the different ways to kind of clean planes on the road and clean aircraft on the go. That's all, new to us completely. So, I mean, everything from apps to kind of tracking health data to different cleaning products like the UV lights and things of that nature we've seen on our side.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that UV light thing. I never would have thought of that either, honestly.
Yeah.
So another question is, has there been any pushback / unexpected results from localities that aren't normally posing problems? Local airports / governments, how have you dealt with that?
Yes. The Caribbean and a lot of the islands are usually very, very tourism friendly. At kind of the height of the pandemic, they closed borders quickly, and they did some things with crewing where they weren't, it was kind of shifting day to day, and who they were letting in, when, why, how, and what those requirements are. Are rapid tests enough? Do you need the full COVID test? Just different things have shifted often. And then same thing state to state, right? The self-quarantining process, what airports are friendly. Obviously, most people are flying that are flying private are going to kind of smaller, more regional airports. So oversight's, kind of different from place to place on what you can expect. But the truth is, it was such a fast kind of developing issue that you can speak to a customs agent at an airport and then an hour later speak to a different customs agent and they had a totally different process because people just didn't know, right? None of us knew. I like to think that we all had kind of a best efforts go forward of, hey, let's keep everyone safe, but let's continue to kind of operate and get people to move and go where they have to go. It just, there's so much uncertainty. It was hard to tell, but yeah, we've seen some challenges with, pilots airlining and going, what are the restrictions if they meet an airplane in a certain state and travel to another state. Again, for the most part, because they're essential, they were exempt from a lot of scenarios, but it took a big effort on the back end to kind of figure out the rules and the regulations and make sure that we complied.
All right. So I got one more question here. I think you might have to bust out your crystal ball. So how do you see the overall airline industry changing with the current issues surrounding commercial airlines? Will companies merge, etc.? So I guess just like a little bit of spitball.
Yeah. Again, this is me now on a personal level, just kind of guessing. Who knows? I mean, we'll see if another stimulus gets passed. We'll see what that kind of looks like. I mean, I think the big carriers are here to stay, and I think there's a need for aviation. Some of the smaller carriers that are going to struggle through this. I mean, we'll probably lose some. It's just unfortunate kind of piece of the pie here, right? It's part of business, and with all those losses, though, there'll be opportunities for other people to come in and get some more market share and kind of build back up from the ground up and do things the right way. So I don't know. Day to day, it changes for me. The answer to that question. Some days I'm excited. Some days I'm doom and gloom. I try to have more excited days than I do doom and gloom, but they do, come in from time to time.
Great, thanks, James.
Yeah, there's as I said, a lot of other questions that I think you kind of nailed almost like right as soon as they asked them. So I don't really think that's relevant to kind of rehash. But I think
Sure.
that's pretty much about all question wise that we got.
Thanks,
Great.
Mike. And James, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you sharing your insights. I know that last 6-7 months haven't been easy, but I think that what you've done leading your company has been a true example of leadership, and we've loved on the Canary side just to see you kind of like navigate through it, how you've been able to adjust and adapt. And I know our audience is also very thankful for your time today, and thanking our audience as well for being here again. Every month.
Thanks, Ray.
For our webinar series.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it. Wish you guys luck.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in. As I mentioned earlier, this has all been recorded, so it'll be thrown up somewhere accessible soon, and we'll send you links out to everyone. So thank you guys for tuning in. Take care.